Okay, so we begin with third lesson, which is network file system. Now we all know that in Linux we require a networking, not only to transfer the data from one computer to another computer, but also to share certain kind of applications, share certain kind of software also. So to make this scenario occur or to make this thing happen, we require a networking from one Linux system to another Linux system, and also from one Linux system to another different kind of operating system. So what are that network file system and how do we set up that? How do we mount that? That we'll be studying in this lesson. Okay. So now a network file system, which is called as NFS, is nothing but a client and a server application. Okay, what does this application allow? We have two systems over here. One is a machine which act as a client and another is a machine which act as a server. So we can also say that this network file system is a client server application, where the machine which is client always requests for some data from the server machine over a network connectivity. And once if that service or if that data is available at the server, it will provide that data to the client machine again by using a same network line. Okay, so what does it say? That the NFS is a client server application that lets a computer user view and optionally store and update the files on a remote computer as though they were on the user's own computer. Now, which means what? Here we can have an example of AnyDesk and TeamViewer. That is, my machine is a client machine. I have this two softwares installed into it. And through this software, I'll get attached to the server machine. Whatever I want from the server machine will be made available to me. And then I can directly take that into my computer. Okay. So that is what is written, like a computer user can view as well as store and update the files on the remote computer as though they were on the user's own computer. That means it is being assumed by the client that I myself is attached or I myself is acting as a server and I'm taking my data on my own machine. But the machine is not acting as a server. It is acting as a remote computer. And with the help of a remote connection, a client machine is possible to take the data from the server machine. Okay. So again, to do this, I require a network connectivity. So through a network, I am connected to the server machine, and then whatever data I want from the server machine, I'll copy it into my client machine. If I do not have an appropriate memory or sufficient memory to get the data into client machine, the second alternative is I will directly execute my application on the server machine and take the data or take a result on my machine. Instead of taking the entire software, I'll just take a result of it on my system. Okay, so both is possible. If the memory is sufficient, you can take the entire software or application or whatever you want. But if the memory is not sufficient, you can always execute on the server machine and then take only the result on your system. Okay, the NFS allows the user or a system administrator to mount. Now, what do you mean by mount is, it is nothing but attaching the devices to the system. Whenever I attach any device to the system, and if that device is once attached to the system, I call it as the device is being mounted. That means I am able to use that particular device. Now, if when I remove that particular device from the system, I call it as unmounting of the device. So mounting in Linux can be considered with respect to device also, as well as with respect to files also. Now, how can you tell about mounting of files? Whenever I'm getting a file from a server machine and I'm storing it on a client machine, I call it as mounting of the files. Why? Because I have brought that file from a server machine over a network into my system and then I'm using it. Once when I delete that particular file, after I have no longer do not want that file in the system, I call it as unmounting. So if you attach a device, it is mounting of device and unmounting of device when you remove it. But if you have brought any particular file over a network from a server machine on your own machine, I can also call it as mounting. Why? Because I have brought it from some another machine and I'm using it onto my machine. That is what is also called as mounting. So you have mounting of devices and mounting of files. Similarly, after the work is done, you remove it. So you call it as unmounting of device and unmounting of files. All this information about the mounting is stored into a directory called as /mnt. If you see the 1.4 module, of the 1.4 module of your first chapter, in that you again have a hierarchy of your file system, where I had shown you there is one more particular file system called a /mnt, like how you have /bin /etc /temporary /user /variable. Similarly, you have a directory called a /mount. So whatever you're getting from the server is always stored in that mount file system only, or a mount file directory only. Again, whenever you attach the device, your device information is found in /dev directory also, as well as if once it is mounted and it is used, it is also found in /mnt directory also. Okay, so there is a separate directory where all this folder, all the information brought from the server as well as all the devices attached will be found in that particular directory, and the name of the directory is /mnt. Okay. The portion of the file system that is mounted can be accessed by the clients with whatever privileges are assigned to each file. Now I have brought my file and stored it inside the mount directory. Now that file will have certain permissions. Why it will have permissions? Because it is brought from the server machine. So the user will not get every write. That is, we have 3 writes: read, write, and execute. So depending upon a file and the usage, the server will assign a specific rights to that file, and then it will get transmitted to the client machine. So it might happen that some of the files will have all the 3 permissions, that is read, write, and execute, whereas some of the file will have only permission to read, but not to write and not to execute. So we have to, being a client or being a user of that file, we always have to check first that what are the permissions, and then depending on that permissions, we can use the particular file. Okay, so those are nothing but the privileges. Those rights, that is read, write, and execute, are nothing but the privileges. And who assigns this privilege? It has been assigned by the owner of the server machine before it is transmitted to the client machine. Okay, and where is that stored inside the client machine? It will be found inside the mnt directory only. Okay. Then next we have port mapper. Now what is this port mapper? It is a server that converts RPC program. Now what is RPC? Remote procedure call. RPC is called as remote procedure call. Now what is this RPC? We'll be learning in detail in the slides ahead. So what is that port map? It is a command, and it is a server command that converts your RPC program number into port number, and it must be running in order to make a RPC calls. Now, what is this RPC call and RPC program? We have 2 machines, one is client and one is server. A client sends a request to the server. Server is searching for that information. Once the information is being there, it will acknowledge the client that yes, I have that information. Once the acknowledgement is received to the client, client will ask the server to directly transfer the data. So server will again transfer the data to the client. And once this communication is done, the client will generate a signal to the server machine indicating to close the connection. So whatever I'm doing, that is sending the request, receiving the acknowledgement, receiving the data, sending the close connection signal, all these are nothing but the RPC calls. That is the connection that is made by using certain commands or by using certain signals between this client and server. Those are nothing but called as RPC calls. Okay, so when I am doing this communication, I require some port number. Now what is that port number is? I require an IP address of both the client as well as the server. Why? Because the server should know that who is the client who is sending me the data and where does that client belong to. Again, when I'm receiving a data at a client side, I also should know who is the server and from where that server is where that server is located. So knowing the IP address of both the machines is nothing but knowing the port number. And why is this required? Just to know that from where the information is coming and where the information is going. Now, again, in between, if I have multiple proxy servers, I will never come to know who is the actual client and who is the actual server. But I'll always get to know that to which intermediate proxies my data is getting transferred. So if there is any kind of error or if any kind of problem during this transmission, or if at all there is any kind of attack in between this transmission, I can always verify the computers in between the client and the server. How can I verify those machines in between? Because of the different port number that is generated. Okay, so which the command called as port map command is generally used at the server side to generate these port numbers. Okay, and what is that port number telling you? All the detailed information of the client machine. A port map must be started before any RPC servers are invoked. Port map must be started means whenever I'm making any connection, before the server transmits the data, I should always on this port mapper. Okay, I should always execute this command after the connection is made and before the data is transmitted. So if you do not execute this command before the data is transmitted, I'll never come to know that which are the intermediate computers to which the data is going, or if the client is connected directly, I will also never get to know who is the client where the data is getting transmitted. So after the connection is being made between two machines, immediately you execute this port map command on the server machine. Once that command is executed, the server can transmit the data to the client. So port mapper is nothing but a command which is used to know the information about the client machine through its IP address, as well as the information about the server through its IP address. If there is no direct communication between them, no direct connection between them, if the port map command will also give the information about the intermediate proxies that are connected between the client and the server. Okay. Next is NFSD daemon. Now, what is this? If you want to provide a NFS, that is Network File System Service, to other host, you have to run the NFSD and a mount D daemons to your machine. Now, what is this daemons? They are nothing but the commands. So before you make a connection between the computers over a network, that is before any server machine is connected to the multiple clients over a network, the system always have to run two commands on its own machine. Own machine means server. Okay. So if there is a server machine and if there are 10 client machine, so whenever a server makes a connection with these 10 client machine, the server has to run the two commands on its own machine. Which are those two commands? The NFSD command and a mount D command. Okay. What are these two commands going to start? It will start a kernel based NFS. Kernel based NFS server daemons, which will handle the file system request from the client. Now we have studied what is the detailed structure of the Linux. Whenever there is a request coming from a user, that request is given by the user with the help of a shell, that is command prompt. Then a respective system calls are activated. After those system calls are activated, the request goes to the kernel. Kernel will make all the hardware available to the user. CPU will perform all the work. Once that execution is being completed, again the kernel will activate the system calls to send the reply back to the user. Once the answer is reached or the results are reached to the system call will make that result available on the shell, and then the user can read the result. Okay. So to make this entire procedure also work on client and server machine, I have to activate this NFSD command. So when I use this NFSD and mount D commands, what is going to happen? I will have a smooth communication between the client and the server, which means whatever request is coming from the client will reach to the server's kernel. And again, after the processing is completed, it will again reach back. The result will again reach back to the client machine via the server kernel. So to activate this server kernel, to which this 10 machines, client machines are connected, I will require to execute this NFSD and a mount D command. Okay. So work of NFSD is to activate the kernel, and the work of mount D, that is a mount device, is to make the files available to the client machine in its own respective directory, which is /mnt. Okay. So NFSD will activate the kernel. Once the kernel is ready to use, once the kernel has done its work, how is the file getting copied to the client machine? With the help of the mount D command. And where are those files getting stored? Those files will be stored in the MNT directory of the respective client. Okay. How is this going to work? We'll see in the next slide. Okay. So for the server part, we have different set of commands. For the client part, we have different set of commands. And we have to perform this activity of connecting a client to a server and server back to the client on both the machines. That is, on the client machine also, we have to execute certain commands, and we have to execute certain commands on the server machine also before this exchange of files and devices take place. Okay. What is this mount D daemon? The rpc.mountd program implements the NFS mount protocol. It checks the request against the list of currently exported file system. So what is this mount D doing? It is searching for the files on the server machine. Once if those files are available, or the file system or the file directory is available, it is sending that files to the client machine, and it is automatically storing it into the mount folder of the client. How is this happening? It is happening with a mount protocol. Now we all know what is a protocol. They are rules which has to be followed for any communication to take place. Now what does a rule in a Linux system say? That we have to execute certain mount related commands on the client machine and mount related commands on the server machine. Now what are those commands? Let us see now. What is the first? Setting up a host server. Host server means we are going to do all these steps on the server machine. Why are we doing all these steps? So that a client can communicate properly to the server. Sorry, the client should get connected properly to the server. Once the connection is done properly, the data also should get copied from the server machine to the mount directory of the client machine. So to do these two things, we have to make certain setup on the server machine. What is that setup that we will be seeing now? Install the NFS kernel server and then create and export the directories that we want the client system to access. So what is our purpose? That first is we have to install the NFS kernel server on the server machine so that the client commands or the client request can reach to the kernel of a server properly. Once those commands are reached, what is the second thing? We have to send some directories whichever the client has asked for. So what are those? The sending of directories called nothing but export the directories. Okay, so once that directories are there on the server, I will simply select those directories and send, that is export to the client machine, and then the client can access the data from its own machine. So to do this, the first step is we are installing the NFS kernel. So how do we install? Before I install anything, let us update that particular application so that whichever is getting download will be downloaded with all the latest features. So before I install anything, we are supposed to update that particular application in Linux. So we say sudo apt get update. So what it will do is it will update all the applications which are there on the server machine. If I want to update only the NFS kernel server, what will I write over here is NFS kernel server. So it will update only that application. What will I do next is sudo apt install NFS kernel server. So after I execute this command, NFS kernel is being downloaded or being installed onto my server machine. After I do this, my server with a kernel is ready now to accept the client request. Second thing is it will search for the directory which client has asked for and make that directory available onto the client machine. So what is that step? Create and export the directory. That means I will create the directory. After the directory is created, I'll export that directory. The directory that we want to share with the client system is called an export directory. Okay, so whichever I want to share, that directory is called as export directory. So if I want to share a directory called as abc.txt file, so I will call that file, or I'll name that directory as an export directory. You can name it according to your choice. Whatever name the server wants, the server can keep the name of that particular directory. Here we are creating an export directory by a name called as share folder. Okay. So what is the name of a directory which I'm going to share? The name of that directory is shared folder. In our systems mount directory, where I am doing this, I am creating this directory inside the server, inside my MNT directory. So when I open my MNT directory, what do I get to see? A folder called as shared folder. Okay. So what is the command used to do this process? Sudo mkdir -p/mnt/share folder. So by executing this command, what am I doing is I'm making a directory. To make a directory, which is the command use mkdir, which mk stands for make and dir stands for directory. So make a directory. Where is that directory to be made? In the mount directory. And what is the name of the folder that I will be making is, the name of the folder is shared folder. So what is the shared folder having? It is having certain files which a client has asked for. So now when I transmit the data, what I will be transferring is I will be transferring this particular folder. Where this folder will go to the client machine. Once when the client extract, it is supposed to extract the share folder. Once it extracts the share folder, it will find all the files which the client wanted from the server system. So what has server done here? Instead of sending one file individually, the server machine has simply created a directory called as share folder, which is inside its MNT directory, that is mount. Why it is inside mount? Because it is sending it from server to client machine. So to send any data from server to client machine, it will always store everything inside the MNT directory. Okay. So the server machine will create a folder, keep all the files inside that folder, and then share the entire folder to the client. So up till this step, what I have done on the server is I have downloaded the kernel so that it can accept the client request. After that procedure is done, I have created a directory called as share folder, which is having all the files which a client wanted from the server machine. And I am going to send this entire folder to the client now. Okay. Now, if you remember, it was written in the first step that whenever the file is sent or whenever it is accessed by the client, it will have the privileges. So I told you that these privileges are set by the server. So the next step after the server and the file is created, we are going to assign the privileges to that particular file. So now since our files are inside folder, so what we'll do is we'll keep the privileges to the folder. So once it is applied to the folder, it will be applied to all the files inside the folder as well. Okay. So what is happening? As we want the client to access the directory, we will remove the restrictive permissions of the export folder through the following commands. Now what is happening? The first command is sudo chown. Now what is this chown? It is nothing but change owner. Ch is for change and own is for owner. So I am changing the owner. Right now, when the machine is on the server, the owner is the admin itself. But now since I am sending it to the client also, so I have to change the ownership. Now, many a times what has happens is I start the recording, but the ownership goes to somebody else. Though I had started the recording, since it is still it is going to somebody else. So what is that person doing? It is transferring the ownership and making me as a owner so that I can download the things. So same thing will happen if there is a communication from a server to a client and client to the server. So whenever being a server, when I transfer anything, if I keep myself as a owner only, and if I do not change the ownership, the client will be never able to download those files on the system. So whenever I transfer, I have to see to it that I change the ownership also. Okay, so how do you change the ownership in Linux? You make use of a command called as chown. Followed to this, you write a name of a user. Now here it is written as nobody. Nobody means what? Anybody who has received this file will be able to open and download the file. But if at all I want to increase the security, and if I want only that user should be able to access, I will write the name of a user over here. For example, now if I want the ownership to be given to Prathamesh, and if only Prathamesh can download, what will I write over here is sudo chown Prathamesh, which means what? Ownership is transferred only to Prathamesh and only Prathamesh can download the file. But if I keep nobody, and if Prathamesh transfers that data to Aditi, even Aditi can download. And I, being the server, will never come to know that it was being transferred to Aditi and Aditi has downloaded or not. Why? Because I have kept the ownership as nobody. That means anybody can download, anybody can send that file further to any other user. Now, no group. No group means again what? If that person, that is a user, even if it belongs to a group, will be able to download. Even if it does not belong to any particular group, will also be able to download. That means user restrictions are open as well as the group restrictions are kept as open. Any group can download, any user belonging to any group or even not belonging to group can also download. Okay. That what does that mean is nobody for user and no group for assigned it to none of the group. I am changing this ownership for which particular file, that is just which was created. So which is that file /mnt/share folder. So this share folder would be downloaded by anybody and could be also downloaded by any particular group. Okay. Again, now I have told sudo chmod 777/mnt/share folder. Now, what is the 777? It is read, write, and execute. First 7 is for read, next 7 is for write, and the last 7 is for execute. So when I give 777, which means what? This mnt/share folder can be read also, can be written also, and can be executed also. Okay. But if I give 077, what does that mean? Person cannot read, but it can write and it can execute. If I give 700, what does it mean? It can only read but cannot write and cannot execute. So if it is 7, which means the user can perform that particular function. But if it is 0, a user cannot perform that function. Okay. So since all are 7, so it is allowed to read, allowed to write, allowed to execute. But if at all it is all 0, which means it is neither allowed to read, neither allowed to write, neither allowed to execute. One of them is 0 and the other one is 7. So wherever I have 7, I can perform that operation. So this is how I am changing the ownership and assigning the privileges to the directory which I want to share. Okay. So I have downloaded the kernel. I have created a directory which is having a folder called as share folder, which contains all the files which client has asked for. Now I have also set the privileges for that particular file for the client. What are the privileges? It can be read, written, as well as executed. Now, what is step number 3? Assign server access to client through NFS export file. Now, what does this mean? After creating an export folder, we need to provide the client the permission to access the host server machine. Okay. What was happening up till now? I have activated the server with a kernel. I have prepared my file which is to be sent to the client. I have also given the access to the permissions to the file for the client. That is, once the file reaches to the client machine, the client will be able to open, it will be able to send it to anybody, it will be able to execute, everything is done. But now in the third step, what am I doing is I am allowing the client to attach to the server machine to take this data on its own machine. That is actual connection step. Sorry, it got disconnected. So what I have done is I have prepared everything on my server machine. Now I will just set up a connection so that a client can get connected to my machine. And once the connection is done, I'll simply transfer the file. Okay. To make that connection. Am I audible?
Ma'am, presentation is not presenting.
Okay. But can I hear? Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what am I doing in the third step is I am setting up the connection on the network with the help of from the server to the client. Okay. So what do I do is the permission is defined to export the file located in your system /etc folder. Now what is happening is I have to export the file which I have created. So where is this permission for exporting any file from one machine to another machine? It is located inside the etc folder, inside the directory called as export. Okay. So I have to activate this particular file to export the data from one machine to another machine. So even if it is client server or client communicating, any machine which wants to transfer any data to any other machine, I have to first activate the export file on my own system. How do I do that? I do that by executing the command called as sudo /etc/export. Now, why did I execute this command? Because all the data required for exporting or all the permissions required for exporting are there inside the export folder, and that export folder is located inside the etc directory. Therefore, I have to execute this command so that a connection is being made and it is giving me a permission now to export the file from one machine to another machine. So in the third step, I am simply taking the permission to export the files from one machine to another machine. And how do you take this permission? By executing a command sudo /etc/export. Why? Because it is this directory or this file export is located inside /etc folder. Now next is, once you have opened the file, you can allow access to. Now what is this? File is ready. It is ready to transport now. Once it is being transmitted or before it is transmitted, what I have to do is I have to tell to which machine it is being going. Either it can go to one client machine, or if multiple clients have requested for the same data, I can share it to multiple clients also. But to do this, what I have to add is I have to add the IP address that where the data should go. So how do I add an IP address is /mnt/share folder followed by the client IP address. Okay. Now this first command indicates that I am sharing only to one particular client. So if I want to share to a client where IP address is 0.0.0.1. So what will I write over here is /mount/share folder 0.0.0.1. Suppose if this IP address belongs to a machine of Jayesh, the data will directly go to Jayesh only. Why? Because I have added only his IP address. Okay. Now, if I want to send it to Jayesh as well as to Vivek, what will I do is I will make use of this command, that is /mnt/share folder IP address of first machine, IP address of second machine. If there are 10 users or 10 clients, I will write 10 IP addresses over here. So what will happen? In one go, it will get transmitted to 10 different machines. If it is single, you write only single IP address. If there are multiple, you have to write multiple IP address. But you cannot write the IP address by putting comma. Every time you have to tell that this folder to be shared with this client, this folder to be shared with this client, again same folder to be shared by third client. Okay. What does this RW mean? That I have given permissions to the particular file. Which file? mnt.share folder. What is that permission? It is read, write and execute permission. So that can be given by using 777. And once I have set this permission, I can mention it in the command also that you are being given with the read and write permission to the file called as /mnt/share folder. Okay. Now after that is we have to directly export the directory. So after making the above configuration in the host system, now is the time to export the share directory to the following command. So when I say sudo export fs-a, what will happen? This folder will automatically get exported to all of these clients which are mentioned over here. But if I do not write this export command and if I've done all the steps up till here, this will not mean that your data is transferred to the client. I always have to export the directory by using this export command. And once this command is issued, it will check to which IP addresses it has to send, what it has to send, after it has reached, what are the permissions with which the user can extract the file. After that, the data has reached to the client machine now. What is going to happen is open the firewall for the client. Open the firewall for the client means if at all there is any firewall being set up, I have to test the connection for the firewall also. So what do I do that? Sudo ufw allow from client or client subnet to any port NFS. Now what does this mean is, now when you check the status of a Ubuntu firewall through the following command, you will be able to view the action status as allow for the client's IP address. So what I have to execute is sudo ufw status. Now, if you see this particular picture over here, it is written sudo ufw status. Now, who is executing this command? This command is executed at the server machine. When I execute this command, I get to see some output. What is that output? 2649 allow 192.168.100.0/24. Now what does this mean is, it is telling that the server has sent you the data the status or the action is allowed. Allowed means what? You will be able to download this particular file, which is the share folder file, and you will be able to read, write, and execute that file. You will be checking that from this action called as allow. Who is the server that has transmitted? It is 192.168.100.0/24 is the machine from where you are getting the data. And it is sent to whom? It has sent to 2049. What is this 2049? It is nothing but the port number of your machine. So this 2 part is nothing the client's port number, not the IP address. It is a port number. Action is what type of action is there on that particular file. Action is allowed. Allow means you can download that file. If at all there is deny over here, which means what? You being a user are not allowed to download this file. And from where that file has come, it has come from this particular IP address. Okay. So if once the file is received, how can a client check whether it is received or not? By executing this command. So if I get this output, if I get to see the port number, which means the file is coming to my particular IP address, and I can perform whatever action I want with respect to that particular file. Okay, so the step number 5 is done after the data is exported from the server machine and is reaching to the client machine. Okay. So this was all with respect to your server machine. What did I do first? Set up the kernel. Once the kernel is being set up, create a file which I want to download. Just a second. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we have completed our part.
Ma'am, the screen is not visible.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so we have seen the part with respect to server, that if a server wants to transmit any data to the client, I have to first activate the kernel on the server machine. Then I have to create a folder which I want to transmit it to the client machine. After that folder is created, I have to take an export permission. Once the export permission is being taken, I will also, along with that, I will also see what permissions are to be given to the client for that file. I will change the ownership of it. Then I will prepare the export file. After that, what will the client machine do? It will check the status of the file which is getting transmitted. Once it is being transmitted on the machine, it will come to know what is the IP address of the server from where the data is received. So this was all with respect to host machine, that is the server. Your server machine is also called as host. Now we'll see the second part, that what configuration your client machine has to do to perform or to take this share folder from the server machine. Okay. So what is the first step over here is install NFS common. Now there we had installed NFS kernel. Here we'll be installing NFS common. Okay. So before we install that, we have to update that application. Once it has been updated, we'll install it by using a command apt get install NFS common. Once it is installed, now what I have to do is over here in second step. What was the second step over there? We create an export directory. Okay, so we had created which directory? A share folder which was there inside the MNT directory. Now what will I do over here is create a mount point for the NFS host share folder. create a mount point. Why mount point? Because it is going to come from the server machine. So if anything is coming from a server machine, it should go inside the mount directory of the client machine also. Why? Because the file is getting shared over the network. So if anything is coming from a network, if it is a file, will go inside the mount directory. Even if it is any kind of device which is shared from the server, again that shared device detail will also go into the mount folder. Okay, so once it has come inside the mount folder, then the client can extract it. So we have to create that mount point for whichever file which is coming from the host system. Okay, so your client system needs a directory where all the contents shared by your host server in the export folder can be accessed. You can create the folder anywhere on your system. We are creating it inside a mount folder in the mount directory of the client machine. So what are we doing is, here also in the second step, we are creating a folder, and automatically when the data comes from the server machine, it has to go into this particular file which is created by the client. So what will client execute? It will execute a command to create a directory. So which is a command to create a directory? mkdir. So sudo mkdir hash, that is /mnt/share folder underscore client. Now why it has given name as underscore client? Just to differentiate which is a server and which is a client. It is not necessary that you give client. You can give any particular name over here, whichever you want. So what will happen is, this is the folder of a client. Whatever will come inside this will be the part of the server. Okay, so I have created a directory, and when will I open this directory, what will I get to see is, once the data is transmitted, all that data will be there inside this folder. After this, mount the shared directory on the client. Now what does this mean? The folder that you have created in the above step is like any other folder on the system, unless you mount the shared directory from your host to this newly created folder. If you do not mount it, what is going to happen? It will be just like a normal directory or a file that you have created. Once you attach a mount information to it, it is understood that it is being going to get connected to the network. So mount means it will be connected to a network, and if it does not have anything related to mount, means it is just like a normal file inside the system. Use the following command in order to mount the shared folder from a host to a mount folder on the client. Now, if you see the command, what I have written is sudo mount server IP /export folder server /mnt/mount folder underscore client. Now, what does this mean? Mount server IP. What is this mount server IP? The IP address to which server is the user connected. Now, from where I will get the server IP address? From the connection that I had run over here. So from this step, I will get to know what is the IP address of the server. So I will use this IP address so that I can receive the data appropriately inside my created folder from this IP address only. So what I will write over here is sudo mount and that IP address 192.168 and so on. Okay, /export folder underscore server, which is the folder which server is sending me. It is /mnt/share folder. Okay, so that folder name I have to write over here. After that, it is /mnt/mount folder underscore client. What is the folder that a client has created? It is /mnt/folder underscore client. What does this mean is, I am writing the IP address of a server and the file which a server is sending. Once this step is done, where is this particular folder which server is sending has to be copied? It has to be copied inside this particular folder which a user has created in his own machine. So here in the first part, I am writing the name of a server folder which is shared by the server. And here I am writing the name of the client folder which client has created on its own machine, so that whatever has received here from this server IP address will automatically get copied into this particular client address. Okay. Next I do is curl ifconfig.me. What is this ifconfig.me? When I execute this command, I will get to know the network details of my machine, that is the client machine. If I type ifconfig, I will get to know only the IP address of my machine. But if I want to know all the networking information, I have to type curl ifconfig.me. So I will get the domain address, router address, IP address, if it is connected to any DNS address, all the details of network will be received over here. Where will this be received? On the client machine. Okay. So by using this command, I have attached to the server by the server IP address. By using this command, I am going to take all the data of the server folder and copy it into this folder, which is created by the client machine. Now what I have to do is I have to test the connection. How will I test the connection? I have to open the internet browser and check whether my internet is working or not. Okay, so if it is working, that means my connection is proper and I can receive the data from the server. We had done this testing of connection in the 5th step of the server also. I have to check, open, type this command and see if I get this details, that means the net is working as well as I am going to receive the data. Same step I have to do on the client machine also, by simply opening the browser and checking whether can I see any particular web page or not. If I get to see the web page, means the connection is proper and I will be receiving the data from the server. If at all my connection is down, I won't receive my data even if I put the correct IP address and even if I mention the correct folder also. Okay, so after I mention this, I will test the connection. If the connection is appropriate, I will receive the data from the server machine. If it is not appropriate, I have to retest my connection and then receive the data. Is this clear up till here? Everyone? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is how we set up a connection from server to client and client to server to receive the data on the system. In both the places, we have to download the NFS daemons. After that, we have to create the directory at both the places. After that, in the server part, we have to take the export permission to export the data. Because it is a server, we cannot transfer any data anytime. We have to take that export permission, which is there inside the etc. After that, create a connection by writing the IP address of the client. And last, transfer the data. What we have to do it as the client side is download that NFS, create a folder where my shared data will be saved. After that, I know the IP address of the server from where I have to get the data. So I will simply add the IP address of the server to make the connection with the server. Once that connection is done, I will simply accept the data. But before accepting, I will just check whether my internet is proper or not by testing my connection. If the internet is proper, the data will be transmitted automatically into the folder which I have created. Is this clear up till here?
Ma'am, I have a doubt.
Ah.
Ma'am, how will the server know the IP address of the client every time?
Because a request has come, no? Before I send, what is the RPC using? It is using the signal. What is client doing? Requesting for the data. So once that request has gone, the server has received that the client, this is the client with the IP address who is asking me for the data. So by using that connection request, I can know the IP address. Or second is, I can always make use of this port map command to know the IP address.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay, and the client is knowing the server IP address by using this command. So both of them are knowing from where the data is coming. If at all here, if there is no direct connection and if it is proxy, this address will be replaced by the address of the proxy machine. If suppose server has decided that the data should not go directly and it should go via multiple machines, so then here the client will get the address of those multiple machines. Okay, and here when the client will put the IP address, no, again that IP address will be of multiple machine, not of the direct server. Okay, so what will client have to do is, client will never understand whether it is coming directly from a server or from the intermediate machines. It simply has to use this IP address and assume that it is this IP address where the data has to come from and where the data has to go. That's it. Any other doubts? Any one of you? Okay, so what we have seen is what is a network file system, what is mount and what is unmount. Mount means I am attaching something so that I can send it over a network. That can be any file or it can be any of the device. Then we have seen that if I want to share anything in between client and server, we have to set up a connection, and what are the commands that we have to execute on both the machines to make that file transferred from a server machine to a client machine. Now in the next lecture, we'll be starting that how we are supposed to mount and unmount by using certain commands. Okay. So it is clear up till here, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in next Monday, we'll first continue with this. Followed by that, in last 15 minutes, we'll take test on second chapter. Okay. So let me take your attendance. Nishta, you can stop the recording. Meet,
Yes, ma'am.
Nikunj,
Yes, ma'am.
Nikunj Dalia, not Panchal. Chris,